Okay. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Is ez is jó?
Igen.
Jó, akkor
Okay.
Na, akkor jövünk.
Dear guests, welcome to the Helsinki Liszt-instituutti. It is not every day that we can take part in a motorsports event in our gallery. Tonight we have an interesting discussion about speed and pictures. The discussion will last for about an hour, after which we will have time for questions and comments from the audience. So feel free to pose any questions also during the discussion. After that, we can have a relaxed chat together with a glass of wine, so don't go anywhere. So please welcome our two speakers, Karo Mehas and Dr. Otto Lappi. A little bit about their background. So our special guest from Hungary, Karo Mehas, is a journalist and writer from the city of Pécs. He has worked as a Formula One correspondent for the past 35 years. He has written more than 2 dozens of Formula One books, for example, about Mika Häkkinen and Gilles Villeneuve. He has been to every race at the Hungaroring since 1990. Mehas is also a photographer who has photographed in particular, but not only, Formula One. His writings and translations have appeared in several Hungarian literary magazines and periodicals. Karo Mehas's production includes poems, short stories, and other writings, as well as fairy tales. His works have been translated, for example, into English, German, Italian, Greek, Serbian, and Finnish. Now in May, Mehas will take part in the Haiharas residency program in Tampere for a couple of weeks. And Dr. Otto Lappi is a senior university lecturer in cognitive science at the University of Helsinki, where he leads a research group investigating the cognitive basis of everyday and expert performance. He obtained his PhD in 2014 based on work on drivers' eye movements. He has authored over 50 peer-reviewed publications, including several review papers on eye movements and gaze behaviors in natural tasks. He is also the author of the 2022 book, The Science of the Racer's Brain. Dr. Lappi is particularly interested in visual strategies of experts in high-speed sports and is currently working on multiple projects with international collaborations in the UK and Austria on eye-tracking racing drivers. In his work, he puts great emphasis on visualizations, which he uses to illustrate data, scientific ideas, and cognitive processes. So let's start the discussion and also a computer. So please.
The slideshow.
Yes.
Okay, so we were going to have this as a chat discussion, interviewing one another, and as we are starting with Karoli's pictures here, I will take the first question, and I would just ask you, can you tell us a little about what brought you into racing photography, and why racing and why not some other sports, and why photography and not some other form of communication?
It happened in the mid-70s, so quite a long time ago, when we lived in the Hungarian city Győr, which happens to be near to the Austrian border. And already that time, without any cable or satellite, we could, because of the nearness of the border, watch the Austrian television. And if you are a little bit familiar with Formula One, then you know Niki Lauda has the greatest time in these years. So winning his first title in 75 and having his big crash at the Nürburgring in 76. And that was what captured me, because I was 11 years old that time. And there was a guy on the TV almost from 0 to 24 hours reporting him almost dying in the hospital. Then after 6 weeks, he returned to the circuit in Monza, having a fourth place in the Italian Grand Prix. And as a young adolescent, it was something very special for me. And since then, I remained so. So it was a big imprinting in my life. So this is why Formula One. But of course, behind the Iron Curtain in the socialist Hungary, one cannot dare to dream about become Formula One journalist, because on the Hungarian TV, we didn't have even the races broadcasted. So it began only in the second part of the 70s. But somehow, slowly, all the things what appeared to succeed in Hungary, like the Hungarian race in '86, which was a big revelation for everybody. Actually, that time, the Formula One boss was Bernie Ecclestone, and he wanted to have a race in the Soviet Union. But it didn't happen, and he had, as everybody in the world, a Hungarian friend who suggested him to bring it to the weakest link of the socialist camp, Hungary. And this is how Hungarian Grand Prix came to truth in '86. And it was really a big shock in every sense. And I began to work as a journalist, but on the cultural field in a local newspaper. But I asked my colleagues whether I could go as a journalist to the race. And since nobody wanted to do that, to cover Formula One, because they weren't interested in, I got this job or task, first line. And since, as you said, from 90, I began to visit races, and first Hungarian races, and later I happened to be there at other tracks around the world. And from your side, if I can ask back.
Well, it was a very serendipitous route. So in a sense, I suppose I have had the car bug or whatever it is from a very young age. So somehow just having a steering wheel in front of me and the road is very appealing to me. Where it comes from, I don't know, but this is something that has been with me for a long time. So then when I came to the university to do my studies, naturally I went to study theoretical philosophy. And then at that time, I bought some racing games and started following Formula One.
But you never had the intention to race yourself?
I had no intention to be in any way professionally associated with this. It was just something that interested me. And while I was studying my degree of theoretical philosophy, I discovered this interesting field, cognitive science, which had all the ingredients that I'm interested in. So a bit of experimental psychology, a bit of artificial intelligence and robotics, a little bit of philosophy, and a bit of neuroscience. So all the ingredients were mixed in. And while I was studying cognitive science and neuropsychology and experimental psychology, at that time already, as I was thinking of the problem, how do all these theories that I'm learning on these courses and these lectures, how would they apply to the problem of taking a car through a bend very fast? And then I was trying to figure out, as I was playing these racing games, old school, I won't even tell you the names of the games because you will find out how old I was back then. I had to buy a PC computer to do my pro-seminar thesis on, so I started driving racing games on the computer and then trying to figure out, okay, here is a structured environment to try to understand these ideas that I'm learning theoretically about how the brain works. How would vision work here? How would attention work here? How would memory work here? But it was just my way of keeping things together. I never thought I would end up doing actual experimental work because after all, I was studying to be a theoretical philosopher. Then I went to do a PhD. I decided to do a PhD in cognitive science, and it was supposed to be on a theoretical philosophical topic. And just completely by coincidence, one of my students happened to be recruited to a research group at the psychology department, where they had bought 2 cars and some eye trackers and didn't know what to do with them. And I was like, well, you know what, I'll come over. We can do some experiments on eye tracking people while they are driving these cars on curved roads, and we can get my PhD out of that. And that's how I'm still here. And it was completely by coincidence that my student just happened to be recruited into this lab. And actually more than that, just on one day, I went to find another student of mine for lunch. He wasn't there. This student who got recruited to the lab was there. I was like, do you want to go lunch with me? Because the other guy is not here. We went to lunch and then we started talking. So had that chance event not occurred, I would be doing something completely different.
But did you have a basic interest for car racing as
Yes.
because you had the bug
Yes.
yourself? So what did you watch in the TV or on the spots? Did you go to races as a spectator?
Going to races, there are not so many in Finland. So back then, and as an undergraduate student, there was really no chance to travel abroad with the kind of finances you have when you have no income, basically. But I started following on TV the national broadcasts for Formula One. Mika Salo, Mika Häkkinen, Jyrki Järvilehto were, okay, now you know the period. They were coming through then, and it started to be broadcast live on the national TV networks. And then on Eurosport, I started following Le Mans, which was for me the coolest thing. So back then, this was when the previous time that Porsche ever won Le Mans, then there was a 20-year gap. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool one day to buy a Porsche and drive to Le Mans to watch the race? And then after I got my PhD, I was able to do that. So I was following the sport as a spectator, but other than Le Mans, where we've been a couple of times driving there for the whole week, I haven't been to physically to that many races. Well, coming back then to these pictures we have here, especially I think the portrait images are quite evocative. So when you take pictures of cars, if you're a person who reads car magazines, then pictures of cars, and forgive me photographers, but they basically look very similar. But pictures of people, like this one especially, I love this picture. It's got that like far away look, reminds me of a famous 1960s, I think Jesse Alexander picture might be of Jim Clark, 1968 Italian Grand Prix, if I don't remember wrong. It has some similar feel to it as those. So if we think of taking pictures of cars or drivers, how do you I suppose taking pictures is much trial and error like science. So my question is, when you are taking pictures and then selecting them and looking at your work, what do you feel is a difference between a successful picture or a good picture and then an unsuccessful one? What do you look for when you are trying to take a picture? Can you put any words on it?
Yeah, it's not an easy task to take pictures in a Formula One paddock, not even in the pit lane or on the track outside. So first of all, to be there, you already have a certain Formula One journalistic background to make proper accreditation to the FIA. And if you get the accreditation that allows you either to go in the paddock area, which is usually is a green pass, or if you have a red one, then you can go also in the pit lane area. Previously, in the good old times, you could even enter the garage very close to the cars and the drivers, which is not the case anymore. But what you have to do, be very quickly. So it's Formula One, everything happens very quickly. So the drivers between motorhomes and garages are running. So and they know that, okay, they can stop for a half a second for signing a cap or having a chat or giving a five for a friend, but they are always in a hurry through all over in the paddock area. And nowadays it's easier because previously I had a very small and in today's sense a primitive camera, and putting the originally the shots on a simple film. When it was developed, then you recognize that all the series are gone and nothing worse, or some of them for the 36 shots, what the roll of film was. Maybe if 10 was okay, then you could be happy. But nowadays, okay, you just push the button and you can do as many pictures as pace you have on your card. And it is a very good question that how to select, because sometimes even a not perfect picture reflects the motion and the emotion of the Formula One better than a very stable and traditional photo or just a car being in the garage. But since everything is in motion, then a halfway murky picture is sometimes better than a proper picture, at least for me.
Right. For me, I'm seeing here these graphs now of our research. Those of you who are from the research group recognize this is new stuff that we have just last week submitted. This is from the work done with the people in Austria. So it is quite different when you think of the problem of getting the picture out there. It's also a selection process, but it's different. So what we have is like these eye trackers. You can have a look at them after the event, and you wear this, and you can wear these doing many things, including driving a race car or a simulator, as in this case. Yes, so we also use cameras like you, but the use of, and we have the same luxury as you, that you get like all these pictures. It takes thousands or millions of pictures, and then comes the question of how to select from this mass of data what is my idea or what is my finding. And you're not trying to capture a singular moment. So I think this is different. So you have all these pictures or other forms of data, but what you are trying to capture of the racing driver is not the emotion or a point in history, but something that is general or universal even, how the brain does it. I use a metaphor of candy wrapping. So you have some kind of idea in your mind, maybe, of what the argument might be. You have some kind of a research idea of what you think is happening. And then you have to be able to wrap the data around this idea like candy wrapper. And if the idea and the paper don't fit, then you don't get the result. They have to fit, and then you know you have something. So the selection process is this finding the right candy for the kinds of wrappers you have in the data, and then you get something that you can publish and claim to understand.
Can you explain really in a nutshell that the results what you produce or what you are seeking for, how can the racing business use in the future?
Well, I usually flip the question the other way around, because to me, as a scientist, what is interesting is that we have a lot of knowledge about how to drive a racing car. There's knowledge among the engineers on how to design the racing car, how to analyze the telemetry data that comes out. People have been doing analysis of signals that the driver produces and trying to understand them for decades now. And then, of course, we have the racing driver who somehow understands how to perform the task, but cannot really put it into words. So from my perspective, from the science perspective, you have this knowledge and understanding already there that we need to put into scientific form. So this is, I think, where we are at the moment. We need to understand scientifically things that people know or maybe believe without actually having done any solid checking of it, sometimes just out of habit or tradition. These things that are out there, we need to understand scientifically. Now, your question is then, what is going back? Well, that will depend on what we find, right? So with basic research, it's different from building a bridge. So if you're an engineer building a bridge, then you know that if your process is successful, there will be a bridge at the end. And hopefully the bridge will have some properties like it will be solid enough for people to walk on without it collapsing. Okay. So with applied research, you know where you're going. With basic research, it's the other way around, because you don't know where you are going to be in 10 years' time. If you did, you would be there already. So for that reason, anticipating the actual biggest benefits is usually not really feasible, because only once the new theoretical idea comes do you actually know what its applications are. But if I had to say something putting on the spot, then these kinds of systems are being used by the community quite a lot. So racing teams, coaches, I know everybody knows that eye tracking is something that's being used, and gaze strategy, how a good driver reads the road with their eyes compared to a less good driver. This is something people are looking into and trying to understand. And the immediate, let's say, short-term benefit, not the fundamental benefit, which is unknown, but the immediate short-term benefit is, I think, that we are able to develop new and more, let's say, grounded and detailed ways of putting numbers into this knowledge. So this is what science does. You tell the story in pictures and words and in numbers, and science allows you to put numbers onto the knowledge, and then being able to put these numbers like how long, how fast, how far. If you can put solid numbers on those, this is something that could be immediately useful even to see what is in the data or the visualizations these kinds of machines give when you use them as an end user.
When I started, I remember that a Formula One team has maybe 50, 60, 70 personnel at all on the track, at home at the factory. Nowadays, the big teams, Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, maybe have 1,000 people. And very probably not only engineers, but people like you or any other experts and physicians and physios. So the driver has their own team around them, so who help them to prepare to the race and during the race weekend, of course. Do you have a chance to get an order maybe from big teams, or as an independent institute is difficult because everybody has his own team already, or drivers academy as it's called today? And it is also, I can imagine, a business from one side, and the competition also in this field should be great or big, great as big and big as well.
Right. So, as I said, everybody knows that everybody is looking into eye tracking to some extent or at some level. But as you say, nobody really knows what anybody else is doing. This is also the difference between science and doing research inside a company or for the purpose of a competitive edge or profit. So once something is understood scientifically in the scientific community, you put it all out there. So you publish your results and your findings and your data openly accessible to everybody. This is always then like the balance between the academia and then the interests of the companies on can we get the immediate benefit and can we keep it to ourselves and not give it to anyone else? This is different from the scientific game, which is what is going to be the end game in, let's say, 10 years time or 50 years time, and can we share it with everybody?
Mm.
So I could ask you a little bit about how you see then the relationship between the racing, let's say, racing community or racing as a form of culture, if we are allowed to use that word here. So many people probably see motor racing as something like, okay, it's like the Fast and the Furious, except the cars are even faster and the drivers may be more furious. And it's seen as something quite brutal and simple and not worthy of, let's say, aesthetic appreciation or scientific interest. But we obviously probably feel differently about it. So what's your experience in trying to communicate to people outside of the racing, people who are into racing, communicating to people who do not see what you see, the aesthetics or the appreciation of the finer things in racing?
Well, we can divide mankind in two parts. One is who are interested in Formula One, the other one who isn't, or even doesn't understand. So I usually get the question, how could it be interesting that cars are just running around and zooms and then happens nothing, which is not true because it happens a lot of things. Of course, there are certain periods like last year when one team and one driver won almost every race. But okay, you can ask at many fields of the life, why is it interesting to those who are not interested in? But Formula One has shown in the past 75 years that the interest is growing and growing. And during the Corona time came the Netflix series, I don't know what the exact title in English, Game to Survive or something like this, and it extremely increased the popularity of Formula One. And if we get the data from one race to another, there is always a new record. So somehow it could be developed, this whole business. Okay, it is now in the hands of an American company, and they really know how to sell a product like Formula One. And I think whoever been to a race, it somehow will be, as you said of yourself, that stuck by the bug, because it's really a very special environment, a special feeling. And if you have suddenly a driver or a team what is sympathetic to you, and you start to follow the race and the activity, then it's like anybody who is a football fan. So there are Hungary, we have big national clubs like Ferencváros, and there are generations of people from father to sons who are always fan of the same club, and they go out to the football matches, and it works also in Formula One. Probably here in Finland it's the same with ice hockey or ski jumping, I don't know. But Formula One became very global. So with 24 races this year, which will be a record again, and really on every continent around the world, except Africa, it's very, very vivid, very colorful, and everybody somehow finds his own gain. The promoter as well and the fans as well. So they buy the caps, the shirts, the flags, and they just enjoy themselves on the track, on the tribunes. And with this all media hype and different types of Facebook and other platforms to communicate with each other, it made it even broader and more popular in one sense.
Yeah, if I look at these pictures, then like you could think of like somebody sharing pictures on Instagram. Isn't this a cool picture and so on? And yes, they would see the color or the car or the logos that they wear or whatever. Yeah, and yes, it's then different from somebody like you look at this picture. Well, it's your picture, so it's different still for you. But somebody like me, a picture like this immediately takes you to a certain time and place. Yeah. You know, who is this driver? What period is this? What was going on? What is the story behind that? And this is, of course, something you don't see or know if you don't have the background. I suppose with the car pictures as well. It's similar. If you know a little bit about a car, you know what is happening in the picture. If you understand, okay, this is Monaco, this is coming, I think, to the swimming pool section, and you know the speeds they carry, you know the closeness of the barriers, and so on. So that gives you a different level of understanding. You see literally, I think, in the picture things that the casual viewer doesn't, and so there's this gap. They go, why are you interested in this? And we go, why would you not be interested in this? Because you are seeing a different thing. And I think that also then applies to the scientific process. So if I think of how we use visualizations or pictures trying to convey ideas, like you have some broad theoretical idea that you try to put into pictures like here, or then you have some numbers, data that you also then have to visualize in some way. And if you don't have an idea of what you are looking for, you don't see it. It's like somebody who's never driven a car looking at the race car at the limit. They will not see what is happening. And when you get new results, new discoveries in science, you're always in that situation a little bit, because you are pushing into the unknown. So even you don't know what it is you are trying to see. And a big part of the process is trying to develop the idea, and trying to develop the visualization. And I think they go hand in hand. It's not just to communicate an idea that you already have, that you can communicate not just in words and pictures, but literally you are trying to teach yourself by doing different visualizations to see the things in the thing that nobody has yet seen. I don't know if I can put it any better than that, but a lot of the process of visualization really is a process of discovery and not communication, because you have to discover this new way of seeing in the picture things you never imagined even existed. First, you have to somehow imagine them theoretically.
So Finland has such a great and colorful racing background with rallying and also nowadays already with Formula One. Did you find any way to these world famous drivers to help your program or to promote them or involve them some way, which could be a good advertisement for your work, of course, but I know it's not easy to get their presence or even a visit to the laboratory, because it's always very difficult to get them as a figure of advertisement. But since it's a Finnish lab and your task is important for racing, maybe could be an option.
Yeah, this is something that I would like to get, like the full tire from the basic novice to the best experts. Really get covered the full spectrum with our UK partners. They are working with Motorsport UK, which is the driver development program for young racing drivers. So we are getting their trainee students as subjects for those experiments, and the Austrian side has connections to AVL, which is a company heavily involved in racing as well. But with racing especially, there is this wonderful thing from a researcher's perspective, if you compare to, for example, football, that we can recreate in the lab with modern racing simulators. Like, the games are so good that actually the racing drivers use them for practice and keeping their eye in, and also a lot of the top racing drivers are also racers on the simulator side. Like Max Verstappen is not only the reigning and probably to be world champion, but he's also what's called an alien in sim racing. So somebody who can drive the simulator in such a way that it seems humanly impossible. So if you Google up Max Verstappen world record lap in iRacing in Charlotte, it will blow your mind if you know what you are looking for. He's not going sideways, he's not doing anything, he's just very slowly doing exactly the right movements at exactly the right time. Again, if you don't know what you're looking for, it doesn't look like anything. But if you know how the underlying dynamics work, it's completely astonishing. Okay, so Max Verstappen, he's got his own sim racing team, and Fernando Alonso and Lando Norris, they are also big on sim racing. So you have something that is not possible in, for example, football. You cannot take Lionel Messi, even in theory, and put them to the lab, and take somebody who has just bought their first PlayStation and played FIFA soccer and make them play the game and then get an interesting comparison, because there is no comparison. But with racing, there is a valid comparison because of the technology and validity of the simulation. So you can really, in theory, have the full spectrum from the person who's just starting out, bought their first steering wheel and pedals and trying to get through the track, all the way to the aliens. And this is, for scientific purposes, I think really unique and fantastic. So yes, I would like to get some aliens in my lab as well, but haven't done it yet.
Because sometimes there are PR actions when world champions or very good Grand Prix drivers are put together in a simulator with anybody from the publicum, and the guy wins against a Hamilton or a Vettel. So it's definitely not this, wouldn't happen in a racing car. On the other hand, I remember when I wrote my book about Gilles Villeneuve, who was a very talented and speedy driver, and Jackie Stewart told me about him that the big problem with Villeneuve was his mind management. So this is maybe correlates with your work, that a racing driver today must be very good in head as well. So he could be very skilled, very fast, but if he cannot see the whole race as a strategy and a map, then he will fail.
This is true. And
how can you help them maybe in this sense to put the brain effectivity in the right way?
Well, if it was easy and there was one magic bullet, it would have been discovered decades ago.
Sterling was said, if it would be easy, I wouldn't do it.
Yes, yes, because when you take a task that is very complex, like driving a race car fast is, then to be really good at it, you have to do everything correctly. If you do anything wrong, then you're not fast. So there is not one thing that you do, like in the Fast and Furious, where you find, oh, the throttle pedal can be pushed 1 inch further. Now I can go much faster. This is not how it works. So it is a very, very complex problem that these people have spent like years or decades trying to figure out, and we are trying to figure out how they figure it out. And you are right, there are then like these, for example, mind management aspects of dealing with the physical threat or physical injury or just dealing with the physical forces. These are, of course, things that you cannot recreate in the lab. So it does not translate directly that if you are fast in the simulator, you will be fast. So you take somebody like Jan Mardenborough, who went through the GT Academy to become a GT driver. But of course, there is a transfer effect. He doesn't start from zero. He starts already at a quite high level of the basic, let's say, track learning and visual perception skills and attentional concentration, because those are the things that you can recreate and develop, therefore, in the simulator. Then there are these additional things that require some extra, depending on how far you want to go and what is needed then to perform in the as it were real world racing as opposed to sim racing. So it is not that everything can be replicated in the lab, of course, but then you design to study those things which you can replicate. So it's looking for the keys under the street lamp a little bit. So if there is a very difficult, interesting problem that everybody would like to be solved, but if it is not unsolvable, then it is not scientifically yet something that is interesting. Scientifically interesting problems are the ones where you can figure out a way to solve it. And for racing, it would be these, like, for example, I'm interested in the visual guidance processes and how you use your eyes to read the environment and then do exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment. And this is a property that can be recreated in the lab. So that is like a match between my interest and what I'm able to do.
If anybody would ask you, would be a tutor for a young driver, from not the driving point of view, of course, but what we spoke about, and what would you suggest for Oliver Berman, for example, who substituted Carlos Sainz in Saudi Arabia and came home 7th in a Ferrari, and after that everybody said that's how is it today. Today's Formula One car is too easy to drive because here comes a guy from nowhere. Okay, he's F2 driver, but still 18 years old. Next Monday he went to school back in England, and he came home as a 7, which is quite an achievement. But on the other hand, there were voices that today's Formula One is not tough enough. Is it true? On your...
I will give you the honest scientific answer, which is that I do not know. So I think this is a very important point also when it comes to science generally. So when people have expertise in some field of science and they understand some little bit about some interesting phenomenon a little bit more precisely than other people have been able to understand it previously, people expect this then somehow magically to generalize into like a general expertise on many things. This is not true. So if you ask a scientist, a genuine scientist, on any question that is outside of what they do for living in their science, their answers will not be any more sensible than anybody else's. They know science. This is what they can do. Ask them about their science and they will be able to give you a better answer than other people. Ask them about something else, like the toughness of Formula One or what advice to give to a young driver, and their responses are just regular race fans' responses, and they have just an opinion like everybody else, but just because it is a scientist's opinion does not make it any more useful or valuable. And if they're an honest scientist, they will know the difference between their science and their opinions, and then give the answer that they have no idea.
On the other hand, I find it a little bit funny, other side a little bit silly, that all the drivers are spoken during the race by their race engineer, and they give them such advices, now push. So can you imagine that in the 60s for Jim Clark, or in the 70s Nick Lauda, anybody would give an advice to push during the Formula One race? So it's not embarrassing a little bit?
Yeah, the field changes, and this is maybe something that that you could like give some insight into. Do you think, or let's say, what is your opinion or feeling on the differences between the ingredients of ingredients of speed? What it takes to build a fast racing car obviously has changed, but what it takes to be a fast racing driver probably also has changed. Some of the ingredients are like universal and they're always there, but some things have changed. So you've been around these people for a long time, so like for decades. So how would you characterize the general notion of what a racing driver is? Are they the same kind of animal now as they were in the 1990s or the 1970s?
Oh, even there were so many different drivers from personality or from national background. So you could never compare in this sense Juan Pablo Montoya with Mika Häkkinen or like this. On the other hand, they are both very good and very fast drivers. And it also, looking back, if you won a world title, then almost automatically you are considered a better driver than those who didn't. And there were drivers in the first part of the first years of their career were an average, like Nigel Mansell, if you remember him with Lotus. And after he switched to Williams in '85, suddenly after his first win in Brands Hatch, there was a burden what he jumped over, and he became a totally different driver. And that happened also in Häkkinen's case. So we know that, okay, he could be good. He has immediately beaten Senna in their first practice in Astor in '93, but the successes didn't came. And in Jerez '97, when Ron Dennis ordered Coulthard to hand the victory to Häkkinen, that it transformed him into a winning driver, and after that he was simply unstoppable until he retired. And he remained somehow the same shy guy. So I do remember the press conferences with him, and the journalist asked a question and a very long pause, thinking over, basically, no, or basically, yes. And it was much more than Kimi answered later on, because he sometimes didn't even answer, because just he gazed somewhere in the next corner. On the other hand, like these Latin drivers, Alonso, Montoya, so they behave also off track and on track quite differently, and you can argue about that, which is more fruitful as a driver, because sometimes in case of Montoya we saw that he made a lot of errors because of Latin blood. If he would have the low temper like Mika had, or even later Kimi, although Kimi said that he hated everything outside of his car, and he was quite fiery in the car, sitting there and gaining so many victories. But yeah, it's if it is a difference between the 90s and nowadays, not too much. What I remember that when I began to watch Formula One in 1970s, where there were no communications, electronic communications between the drivers, they were sent out on the track and they had 60 or 70 laps to do on their own. And that was it. And nowadays they have so many possibilities to interfere during the race. On the steering wheel there are, I don't know how exactly, but 20 little buttons to adjust the car, and always the race engineers, or even sometimes the sporting director, telling him what to do. It's quite a different approach to the whole race than in the time of James Hunt or Niki Lauda.
Yes, in addition to the driving itself, there is all these operating the technical systems of the car. Then obviously, obviously racing against your opponent. So maybe I should actually specify that when I talk about race driving, so my interest at the moment is fundamentally the problem of race driving, not the problem of racing against other people. So it's just the brain, the car, and the road, and understanding this trinity is the first building block, as it is the building block of the skill, and it is also something that is much more understandable. You can measure it more completely, and you can bring it under much more scientific control, because there is no this adversarial strategic element that you get as soon as you start racing with other people. And of course, to be a successful racing driver, you need not only to be able to drive, but actually race and be willing to beat other people. And then you have all the technical equipment and understanding the strategic situation of the race. And then, as you say, this communication with the engineer about the equipment and the strategic situation. So those are all like layers upon layers of skill over and above the driving itself, which of course also have to be mastered. So like to be good, you have to be good at everything. You can't have big weak spots. If you do, you have to work on them. So in that sense, maybe you could say that a lot of the driving itself is not that dissimilar, because a car is a car. It's got four wheels, some kind of motor, and then a steering wheel and 2 or 3 pedals, depending on your aesthetics. But but certainly, yes, these other skills that you have to have over and above the one that I'm trying to understand, those have probably changed quite a lot. Whether it takes a different, I'm now wondering whether it, because you say that in your response it comes through that the personality of the person sometimes kind of shows through in the car. So the kind of person they are, this is how they drive. So this is one of those questions where nobody knows how to measure it, but everybody, of course, can have an opinion, is whether the kind of personality you should have to be a winning driver has changed or not. This is not really a question. It's just an idea.
Who were, well, not really. So they say that you have to this so-called killer instinct, what we saw in the case of Senna or nowadays Verstappen. But there were drivers who became world champion with much more moderate or more sensitive driving, and maybe they weren't that big names like Jody Scheckter, who won the 79 title with only 3 wins, but he was able to come home on the 4th or the 5th place because he knew, okay, today the car or even myself is not the brightest, but we need these 2 or 3 points for the championship. And that's probably what referred Jackie Stewart as well, the mind management and thinking further than the next lap or the next race. Because in the case of Villeneuve, they always said they wanted to win every lap, every race, and didn't think about the championship. And when I talked to her, to his widower, Joanna, he said that that was the plan, actually, because he wins every lap, he wins every race, then in the end, the end result will be the championship, but that didn't happen. And also today we have drivers like him, maybe not so successful or so talented, but there are route drivers like Magnussen, for example. So he has now the most penalty points because of different types of unsporting behavior or some mistakes. But the great drivers are a little bit almost the same. Who are some periods are named after drivers. Fangio in the 50s, Clark maybe in the 60s, Stewart, Lauda, Senna, Prost, even Hamilton, of course. And if you put them in a row, it is very difficult. Always there is the big question: who was the greatest of all time? And it's not a good question because you cannot name. It is like who was the greatest composer of all time? Who would you choose, Vivaldi or Bartók or Liszt, who gave the name of this institute? So it's almost impossible. Who were your favorites during your period of expert of Formula One or racing?
I've never really that much rooted for specific drivers or specific teams even. In sports car racing, I'm always on Porsche's side, but in Formula One, I don't really have favorites. If I think back, like who would be my heroes, those would be Senna, and then I think Fangio and Nuvolari would be like the ones.
The three.
Yes. But of the current drivers, to me it's more specific. Like I was really excited that Lando Norris finally won. So and it's not because I'm a Lando Norris fan as such, but it's just a really cool thing to happen. And it's a really cool thing that Hamilton is going to Ferrari. This is fantastic. Well, I'm a bit maybe a Hamilton fan, but of the current drivers, I would probably be most an Alonso fan. Again, I don't know, maybe it's the Latino drivers that appeal to me.
But he delivers fantastically regarding his age.
Yes, because he's got the hunger. I think that's one of the things. So when people talk about the mind or the brain or the talent of a racing driver, and everybody's question is, well, where is it? Where does it come from? Like where does the talent reside in the brain? Well, it's not, as far as I can tell, a measurable property. It's like asking, where does the greatness reside in Liszt or Bartók? These are like things we ascribe to them based on our feelings and our appreciation. But one thing that research has shown, which is clear, is that there is this hunger, this monomaniacal need to pursue this thing as far as they possibly can take it and root out all the bad habits and things that are keeping them from success. And that this is like the psychological ingredient in research that people find in any field really, and is probably the same in motorsport, although nobody has done really that kind of research specifically in motorsport, but it's the general property of how people become the best in any field. And probably that's something to do with human nature. Is the same in any field and has probably been pretty similar across history and even maybe before historical time in all sports and arts and works of life.
Okay.
Have you still many topics to cover, or should we give the word to the audience?
Yeah. One question about when you talk about the games and that they could be somehow used for the science too. When my background is I've also been racing a little, not very much and not very successfully, but still I've been even worse in the games, even though I've been playing more than racing. So that it's the games when the 3D is missing. In real life, you can see that when to brake in the games. I can't see when to brake, and the other thing is that you don't feel the grip. It's, maybe there are even more, but at least those two things makes the gaming really hard for me, and racing it. So how can it used for science?
Yeah. So
because visually the point is that the 3D is missing.
Yes. So specifically, the cue that is missing is binocular disparity. So if you take a VR headset, the way it works is that it gives different picture to the different eyes, and this is a very powerful way for the brain to tell how far objects are. Other depth cues like texture gradients and parallax and occlusion and those kinds of depth cues are there, but this one major depth information is missing, and this of course makes it tricky, as you say, judging speed and judging distances, and therefore like braking points. You brake too late or go too fast into the bend. So this is I think one of the technologies that hopefully will develop that has the most potential for development. So the haptics of the force feedback and the pedals, they are really reasonably decent. So if you spend a few thousand on a set of pedals and on the steering wheel, you can get some kind of feel. But you don't have, unless you have a 3D headset, this major depth cue, which makes distance perception much easier. So you need to calibrate your head a little bit to the screen. We still use screens because with headsets now you still have the problem of the nausea, the simulator sickness. So, for example, if you're interested in how you move your body and your head, and you are worried that the person might vomit if they start moving their head, then they will keep their head still, and you are not able to measure the property that you're interested in. The bigger the screen, the smaller the problem. So in Austria, where we did that study, they have a cool simulator where instead of like 3 screens at 1 meter distance, it's 2 or 3 meters distant and the size of about a movie screen. That helps already quite a lot because the big size gives you more immersion, and I think with like what was it called, mixed reality systems, where you render in 3D the virtual space but leave your body and the wheel visible. Those apparently help a lot with the simulator sickness. So I'm hoping that this queue can be added into the standard toolkit of building your sim rig if you are looking for a like reasonable cost sim rig for your lab. Like if you have, I don't know, 15,000 to spend on it, then I think the augmented reality, the mixed reality is something that could be coming. So I think haptics, there or thereabouts, visuals, mixed reality, hopefully in 5 years or 10 years. Scientists are patient, we play the long game. And then the third part of the field, between the self-aligning torque of the wheel, you have the feeling of the seat of your pants. And there you have all these high-end systems where you have a moving platform. So you shake it a little bit, or then you even make like rotations like they do in aircraft simulators. And that I don't think is again, this is just my hunch, but that is not going to be advancing at this research grade level much soon. So there's two things. So I don't know what the best ones overall are like. If you spend 1 to 10 million, like some companies like Toyota, Honda, they have these like huge rigs with like big sliding platforms where you can really create G-forces and so on. I don't know what they are like, but if you have the regular aircraft style moving platform, then it's really tricky to make them actually give you like realistic feel. You can add information and the driver has to calibrate mentally to the way this thing is moving, like you have to calibrate mentally to the little screens. And once you're able to read it, once your brain recalibrates, then you can feel the car like with your screen. Once your brain recalibrates, okay, this is now how fast I must be going. So then you can do the lap times. But to make it feel like I think what you are thinking when you go into the car, you immediately feel it. You don't have to recalibrate. You feel the seat of your pants because it feels right. And recreating this with the technology that comes from aircraft, which move much slower and which don't have this like same kinds of like patterns of G-forces as cars, then that part I think is not going to be advancing at an affordable level quickly. Part of being the cost, but part of being just, I think, the problem that even very good ones don't give you the like realistic feel. You go into it and you go, okay, this is like now €1 million simulator with lots of movement. It's going to be fantastic. But no, it feels weird and it feels like out-of-body experience and the car is doing something strange until you calibrate, because the movements are not realistic. So of the two things that you raise, the feel and the visuals, I think they are in different places technologically. But the brain does recalibrate. It's fantastically sensitive, so adaptive. So yes, you can do research even if the participant has to recalibrate a little bit, has to get used to driving with a smaller screen. They will have done this in anyway if they are sim racers, right? If they do sim racing, they will have calibrated to this discrepancy, and you can study these other properties in the timing and the gaze behavior and attentional focus and so on.
Not to ask this question, but I'd like to ask again on specific aspect. Nowadays, everyone has really good camera in his or her pocket, and everyone thinks can take marvelous photos, also with some software enhancements in the mobiles. But what differentiates the professional photo from a really good photo, and how does this phenomenon affect the demand for professional photography?
First of all, I don't declare myself a professional photographer of Formula One because I presented 1 or 2 or 3 races during the season, and the professional photos travel with the Formula One circus around the world. They are there at the tests, although there are not too many tests today. Almost every photographer is somehow linked to one of or another team, and they really shot thousands of photos during a season. So, and in this sense, what you said in the early minutes, the serendipity of getting a good photo, a good shot is bigger because you are just there. You have to be there. That's the first one. And as said, with the accreditation, it's already a big privilege to be very close to the scene, to the drivers, to the cars. That makes semi-professional the whole thing, because if you are sitting on the grandstand, then you have no chance to get a good photo. On the other hand, you have to, today's mobile phone cameras are almost perfect and you can do sometimes good photos, but the cars on the track, you have to have really big bulky cameras. So usually for the starting procedure and for the starts, the photographers sit on a stand in the end of the start-finish line, and they can do really good photos, but these cameras are just 2 meters long already and costs a lot of money. I cannot do this, I cannot afford this, but just strolling around in the paddock and, as said, bumping into the drivers, and some of them, when you already know a little bit or you have a good contacts to the press people, or I had quite a good relation, for example, with Mika Häkkinen, and through his physio, Mark Arnold, with Kimi as well, then you have a better chance to enter the motorhomes, for example, because nowadays these are only for invited or VIP guests. But if you have this relation and this professional background, then you have the chance to just sit in and looking around, and if he comes in, then you can do your job, and in the end you will see if you have 1 or 2 good shots. And if it's professional or not, it's a good question, but you could be lucky to have a good question. Good shot, sorry.
Can I ask maybe, of the present drivers on the grid in Formula One, who in your opinion would be the most friendly, like the most approachable, who you could maybe have a beer with in the bar or something like that?
This is difficult, yeah. When you follow them on a different platform, that you can see that Charles Leclerc, who lives in Monaco, Monte Carlo, every step of him when he exits his flat or apartment, it's a terrible mess, because everybody wants to have a selfie with Leclerc. you can see he comes out his apartment, he comes out his from a shop or a restaurant. There are always many people around, and okay, he takes time, maybe 3 photos, 3 signing caps or anything, but it could be very disturbing after a certain level. But the media needs this, and they know this. Everybody, all the drivers, the team itself has a big group of media and press persons, and also already on the track or in the paddock. So previously, you could have easily a chat on Friday or Thursday is the first day of the Formula One weekend, and it was very calm previously, and really I had quite good talking relation with Kubica or Barrichello or some drivers. The big names also at that time were very unapproachable and busy. But if you got a good contact with a young driver, then it could be also useful in the later days when they were in a better position. Nowadays, everything is full covered with some media activity, and okay, you can look around a little bit, but they are talking to Rai, to Sky, to it. I don't know how many TV and other companies are there, and they are contracted to them somehow to have for this 5 minutes, to the other one another 5 minutes, and then the whole afternoon is gone. And in the evening, they have some parties in the city, in Budapest. In my case, for different sponsors, they have a police escort just rushing from the Hungaroring to the center of Budapest. There is a hotel where already 200 fans are gathered. So it's again, so if you have a chance with the pass, maybe to enter the hotel and just to being already inside when somebody arrives, but this means again 5 seconds or 10 seconds when he stops with somebody to have a chat, and then you can go there and making some photos. To be friended with them, it's rather difficult or impossible.
So I think this is it, but let's continue the discussion with the wine of glass. We would like to thank you for the interesting discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Feel free to ask questions.
I think it was
Okay. We were diligent. Diligent.
I think, yeah, to me it was this idea of selection that came